While organizing my father's retirement photos, I discovered my wife's face in the background, standing beside my estranged brother, holding hands. "You never looked hard enough," she smirked when I showed her the picture. "This morning, my brother sent me a message. It wasn't supposed to go this far. They say when something feels off, it usually is. But sometimes, it's not a feeling, it's just a moment. One photo, one glance, one blink where your life splits into before and after." I was sitting in the living room of my dad's condo in Sandusky, Ohio, flipping through stacks of photo albums he'd kept since the 80s. He had just moved into a retirement community off Route 6 and asked if I could help organize the old family pictures. Said it was time to pass the memories down. I didn't think anything of it. My wife, Leona, was in the kitchen brewing coffee, and my daughter, Clara, was at volleyball practice. It was just a normal Saturday morning, or it was supposed to be. I pulled a photo out of one of the albums. It was from Dad's retirement party 2 years ago, at a park pavilion by Lake Erie. A bunch of us had driven out for it. Burgers, cheap beer, the works. And then I saw it. In the background of the picture behind my dad, behind the cake, just barely out of focus, was a couple holding hands. One of them was my estranged brother, Eli, and the woman with him, Leona, my wife. They weren't just holding hands. They were standing close. Familiar close. Not just we know each other close. No, this was something else. I stared at the photo for a solid 5 minutes before my hands started shaking. Leona came in holding 2 mugs. "Here," she said, placing one beside me. "Still like cream, no sugar?" I didn't answer. I held the picture up. "What's this?" I asked. She looked at it, blinked once, then smiled. Not an embarrassed smile. A calm, closed mouth, almost relieved smile. "You never looked hard enough," she said quietly, then walked out of the room. I didn't move for maybe 10 minutes. My head went blank. The kind of blank that feels like a power outage in your own skull. The photo was in my lap. Her words still hang in the air like smoke. "You never looked hard enough." That phrase echoed the rest of the day. Dad didn't notice anything. He was watching a rerun of Columbo, chuckling to himself. When Leona came back, she acted like nothing had happened. Offered to drive home. I let her. The whole car ride, I stared out the window like a zombie. I wanted to ask questions. I wanted to scream. But I didn't. Because part of me already knew. Eli had always been a shadow hanging over my life. 2 years younger, better looking, louder, funnier. He was the guy who could talk himself out of a speeding ticket and into a job in the same afternoon. We hadn't spoken in 7 years. Not since he borrowed $18,000 from me and disappeared. He never paid it back. Never called. Just vanished. Until that photo. When we got home, I went straight to the garage. Sat in my old camping chair, staring at the concrete floor. Leona came in after about 30 minutes. "You saw the picture," she said. I didn't respond. "I didn't mean for it to go that far," she added. "How long?" "Since before your dad's retirement party." "About a year before that." "For years." My voice cracked. "You were with him for 4 years." She nodded slowly. "It wasn't every week. It wasn't even Darren. It just happened." I stared at her like I didn't know her. And honestly, I didn't. "Why?" I finally asked. "I needed something you weren't giving me," she said. And it was like a dagger to the gut. "And Eli gave it to you." "I didn't plan it. I swear. He showed up at the gallery one day, and he wasn't what I remembered. He listened. He understood me. He conned you." I snapped. "No," she said quickly. "No. He never asked for money. Not once. Not after what he did to you. He hated himself for it. He told me he regretted everything." I stood up. I couldn't sit anymore. "And what about Clara? What about me? You were always so distant, Darren." That stung more than it should have. Because somewhere deep down, I knew it was true. I had built walls. Not all at once. Over time. After Eli, after my mom passed, after the economy tanked, and I had to shut down my auto shop and take a soul-suppressing desk job in Toledo. Life chipped away at me, and I stopped showing up the way I should have. But none of that excused this. "You could have told me," I said. "You could have left. But instead, you stayed and lied." "I tried," she whispered. "But you never looked hard enough." There it was again. That same line. Like it explained everything. The next morning, I got a message. It was from Eli. It wasn't supposed to go this far. That was it. I didn't respond. I didn't throw my phone or punch a wall. I just stood there in the hallway, holding my phone like it weighed 50 pounds. For the next few days, things in the house were tense but quiet. Leona slept in the guest room. Clara didn't know anything yet. I didn't know how or if I was going to tell her. I went to work. Came home. Ate alone. Didn't speak unless I had to. Then Eli sent another message. "Can we talk? Just the 2 of us. One time. I'll come to you." At first, I ignored it. But something inside me cracked. Or maybe curiosity, just one. I replied, "Friday. 7 p.m., the old dock. Come alone." Friday came fast. I parked my truck by the lake, walked down to the dock where Eli and I used to fish as kids. It was the only neutral place I could think of. He was already there, sitting on the edge, skipping stones into the water. He looked older, grayer than I remembered. He stood when he saw me. Darren, he said. Cut the crap, I snapped. Talk. He took a deep breath. It started by accident. I swear. Yeah, that's what everyone says when they screw their brother's wife. She didn't know who I was at first. She'd never met me. I showed her pictures. From 10 years ago. I looked different. I was going by Ellis then. You even changed your name? I was trying to disappear. We stood in silence for a minute. A few ducks waddled by on the shoreline. I didn't come here to defend myself, Eli said. I came to apologize. I know it doesn't mean anything now, but I didn't expect to fall for her. It just happened. You fell for her? I did. I wanted to hit him. My fists clenched so hard I thought I'd break my own fingers. But I didn't. I just said, you know what hurts the most? He looked at me, waiting. You didn't just lie. You didn't just cheat. You let me trust you again without even knowing it. I'm sorry. Don't say that. You don't get to say that. He looked away, blinking hard. Are you in love with her? I asked. He nodded. Once. That broke something inside me. I should have seen something sooner. But it's like you don't really know what to look for until the lights come on and everything's already wrecked. That morning in Sandusky was like any other. Chilly. Quiet. You could smell the lake through the screen door. That sharp mix of algae and wind. Dad had a fleece blanket on his lap and was flipping between channels, looking for old westerns. Leona was in the kitchen, humming something, probably reheating the coffee for the third time. I was just trying to organize his albums, 5 or 6 of them spread across the floor. He had every photo since 1981, labeled and in order. I didn't expect to find anything. I was flipping through the album from his retirement party, the one we had at Shoreline Park near the marina. I remember that day. It was hot. We grilled bratwursts. People brought way too much potato salad. That's when I saw it. There was a photo I didn't remember being taken. Not one we framed or hung. Just a candid shot of Dad next to the big congrats, Al banner. Off to the side, in the background a couple, standing under one of the shade trees. My stomach dropped. My wife, Leona, holding hands with my brother. Eli. I stared at it, frozen. My brain tried to explain it away. Maybe it wasn't her. Maybe the light made it look like her. But I knew that sundress. I remembered helping her pick it out at the outlet mall in Perrysburg. I remembered how she made fun of how clingy it felt in the back, and I told her she looked great. And Eli? He was supposed to be gone. Out of my life. Out of our lives. I stared at it for so long, I didn't even realize Leona had walked up behind me until she said, "Need a top off?" I didn't say anything. I just turned the photo around and held it out. She glanced down. Her eyes didn't widen. Her face didn't change. No gasp. No panic. Instead, she gave me this flat, cold, weirdly calm look and said, "You never looked hard enough." And then she turned and walked out of the room like we were done. Like that explained everything. I sat there, completely still, hearing my heart thud in my ears. I couldn't make sense of her reaction. Not even an attempt at a lie. No defense. Just that line. You never looked hard enough. We drove home later that afternoon. Clara had practice. I didn't say much the whole ride. Neither did Leona. She just drove like she always did. One hand on the wheel, the other playing with her hair, flipping through radio stations like we weren't sitting in the thickest silence we'd ever shared. That night, she slept on the couch. No conversation. No argument. Just this unspoken, unbearable understanding that something had shattered and neither of us had the energy to pick it up. The next morning, I found a text waiting on my phone. It was from Eli. It wasn't supposed to go this far. 6 words. That's all it said. No greeting. No apology. No explanation. I stared at it for a long time. Eli had ghosted me years ago. Borrowed nearly 20 grand under the promise of paying back with his contracting business, whatever the heck that meant, and then just vanished. Didn't answer calls. Changed numbers. No social media. It was like he walked into a fog and never came out. Now, out of nowhere, he sends that? It wasn't supposed to go this far. The next few days at home were unbearable. Leona kept her distance. She made dinner, did laundry, and took Clara to school. But she didn't talk to me. Not really. I'd catch her looking at me sometimes. But as soon as our eyes met, she'd turn away. I think what got me the most was that she never denied it. She never tried to twist the story or gaslight me or cry. She just let it exist. Like it was some passive truth she no longer had the strength to argue with. That Friday, I finally texted Eli back. Friday, 7 p.m., the dock behind Grandma's old place. Come alone. I didn't even know if he'd show. But he did. I got there early. The dock hadn't changed. Still creaked when you stepped on it. The lake looked like glass, the sun dipping low enough to paint the surface orange and purple. I hadn't been back there in years. Not since before she died. He showed up 10 minutes late. Typical. He looked older. Gaunter. A little gray in his beard. Same arrogant smirk, though, even if it was thinner now. Worn out. Darren, he said, nodding. Save it, I replied. We stood there for a moment, like two people who both knew the conversation wouldn't go well, but couldn't avoid it either. He stuffed his hands into his coat pockets. I didn't come here to start a fight, he said. You started one 4 years ago, I said. You just didn't stick around to watch it burn. He sighed. Look, I know I don't deserve anything. Not from you. I didn't say anything. He continued. I met her by accident. I didn't even know who she was, Darren. She was working that gallery show downtown. Remember the one with the sculptures made of junkyard parts? I was looking for a side gig, and we started talking. Nonsense. I swear to God. I didn't even know she was your wife until maybe the third time I saw her. By then, he trailed off. You could have stopped it, I said. I tried. No, Eli. You didn't. You hid. You let it go on. You slept in my house, ate at my table, and didn't say a damn thing. He flinched. I didn't know how to stop it, he said quietly. You ever think about Clara? You think about what this does to her. She's a kid. She'll bounce back. That did it. I walked straight up and got in his face. Don't you ever talk about her like you know her. You don't get to call yourself anything near family. He didn't say anything. Just took it. Maybe for once in his life, he realized how far he'd gone. I stepped back. You gonna keep seeing her? I asked. I don't know, he admitted. I love her, but I hate what I did to you. You don't get both. Silence again. Finally, I asked the question I'd been avoiding. Did she ever love me? He looked at the ground. I think she wanted to. But I think she gave up waiting for you to notice her. That line cut deep. Deeper than I wanted to admit. Because the truth was, part of me had drifted. After I lost the shop, after the bills piled up, after Mom's funeral and Eli's disappearance, I became someone quieter, closed off. I went to work, came home, paid the mortgage, mowed the lawn. But I wasn't present. Not really. Still didn't excuse any of this. But it made the betrayal feel messier. Less black and white. I didn't forgive him. I didn't shake his hand. I just turned and walked back down the dock without looking back. When I got home, Leona was sitting at the table. You saw him, she said. I didn't answer. He said he still loves me. Do you love him? She looked down at her hands, picked at a loose thread on her sweater. I don't know, she said. I loved how he made me feel. But I don't know if that's love or escape. Do you love me? I asked. She didn't answer right away. And that said more than anything else could have. After she didn't answer, I just stood there. I didn't yell, didn't cry. Just stood in our kitchen with the fridge humming behind me, her coffee half full, and the quiet stretching so long it started to feel like a third person in the room. You don't know if you love me, I said. Leona looked up then, slow and tired. I don't know how to answer that honestly without hurting you. That's already done. She nodded once, like she accepted that. Like it was a fact, not even something to argue. I loved you. I did, she said. But somewhere in all the years and jobs and bills and silence, I stopped feeling like I mattered to you. I didn't know how to respond. You stopped talking to me, Darren. Not about things that matter. You'd talk about the water bill or the car needing brakes, but you didn't see me anymore. Not really. I crossed my arms and leaned against the counter. That doesn't give you permission to cheat. With him, of all people. I know, she said, voice thin. I know that. And I've gone over it 1,000 times. I don't have a good excuse. Silence again. Finally, I asked, did you plan to tell me? No, she admitted. I didn't think I'd ever have to. So if I hadn't seen that photo, I would have taken it to my grave, she whispered. That landed harder than anything else. She didn't flinch when she said it, either. I walked out of the kitchen, straight into the garage, and stayed there for almost 3 hours. I didn't do anything. Just sat in my old lawn chair, the one with the tear in the armrest, staring at the shelves. I see everything is different now. The way she folded the towels, the half-used lotion she kept in the bathroom drawer, her handwriting on the calendar by the fridge. It all felt like someone else's life sitting on top of mine. Around 9 that night, Clara came home. I heard her shoes hit the hardwood and her bag dropped near the couch. Hey, Mom, she called. Hey, sweetie. Dinner's in the microwave. She came out to the garage 15 minutes later. Dad, I looked up. You okay? Not really, I said. She sat down on the old cooler next to me. You and Mom had a fight? Sort of. She nodded like she already knew. Like the tension in the air had been screaming at her louder than either of us had. I'm not a kid, you know, she said. You don't have to hide stuff. I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. Something happened between Mom and Uncle Eli, I said, testing the waters. She stared at the garage floor. She didn't react like I expected. I figured, she said finally. What? I saw texts once. On her phone. Like, last year. They were weird. But I didn't really know what to think. Why didn't you tell me? She looked up at me. Because we were already falling apart. That sentence hit me harder than the photo. The next morning, I took the day off work. I drove to Mommy and just walked. Down by the river, past the little antique shops, through the old neighborhood where I grew up. I didn't have a destination. I just needed to move. Eventually, I ended up in front of the place where my auto shop used to be. It was a vape store now. Neon signs, posters with clouds on them. The windows were all tinted. I stood there for 10 minutes, just remembering. The smell of motor oil. The radio is always set to classic rock. The weird customer who always asked for a discount and brought donuts he clearly didn't buy. I built that place from nothing. And when the market tanked, I held on to it too long. Lost our savings. Took the desk job out of necessity. I told myself I was doing it for my family. I still believe that. But I also know I started disappearing around then. Stopped showing up the way I used to. Stopped laughing. Stopped holding her hand in public. All the little things that seem harmless until they're not. I went home around dinner time. Leona was at the table with a yellow notepad, her glasses halfway down her nose. She looked up when I came in. I'm moving into my sister's next week, she said before I even had my shoes off. I didn't say anything. I don't want to confuse Clara. I need to step away for now. Are you leaving for good? She shook her head slowly. I don't know. Maybe. But I can't stay here and pretend we're okay. I nodded. Okay. I'm not asking for anything. Not the house. Not supported. Nothing. I just need to not be here right now. She stood up, like the conversation was done, and started walking toward the hallway. Then she paused. You used to look at me like I was the best thing that ever happened to you, she said, without turning around. I missed that more than I ever missed anything else. And then she disappeared down the hallway. That weekend, Clara and I painted the guest room. It wasn't planned. She walked in while I was staring at the blank walls, said, "Can we make this mine?" And I just handed her the roller. We didn't talk about Leona. We didn't talk about Eli. We just painted. She picked a color called Juneberry Mist and got it all over her elbow. I let her. It was the most normal either of us had felt in a while. Around midnight, I got a text from an unknown number. You handled that better than I would have. I hope you find peace, big brother. I'm leaving Ohio for good. Eli. I stared at the message until my screen went dim. Didn't reply. Some part of me believed he was gone for real this time. Another part of me knew better. The following week moved like wet concrete. Every minute dragged. Every conversation felt half finished. Leona kept her word. She packed in silence, didn't ask for help, and kept to herself except when Clara was around. She didn't cry. Neither did I. It felt like we were both too numb to even mourn properly. The day she left, she told Clara they'd go to lunch the next weekend. Clara nodded but didn't say much. She gave Leona a long hug at the front door, then watched through the window as she drove off. I stood behind her, arms crossed, feeling useless. You think she's coming back? Clara asked, still staring out at the street. I don't know, I said honestly. I'm not mad at her, she added. I stayed quiet. But I'm not proud of her either. That hurt to hear, because it came from a place of clarity I didn't expect a teenager to have. It reminded me just how much damage grown-ups can cause while trying to find themselves. That night, Clara came into the living room while I was half watching a basketball game. She sat on the couch, pulled her knees up under her hoodie. Do you hate her? She asked. I turned off the TV. I don't know, I said. Some moments I do. Some I don't. I don't hate Uncle Eli either, she said. Even though I feel like I should. Me too. She was quiet for a bit. Is it weird that I just want everyone to go back to pretending? No, I said. That makes you human. She leaned her head on my shoulder, and I wrapped my arm around her. It wasn't some big emotional breakthrough. We didn't cry or spill our souls. But it was enough. Maybe more than enough. The next couple weeks passed in a blur of work, school drop-offs, takeout dinners, and quiet evenings. Clara got used to Leona being gone faster than I expected. She never asked to call her. Never said she missed her. But I'd catch her glancing at her mom's contact on her phone sometimes. Like she wanted to text, but didn't know what to say. Leona checked in once a week. Usually a short message. Just wanted to see how Claire's doing. I always answered. She never asked about me. One evening, about 3 weeks after she left, I got a knock on the door. It was her sister, Brenna. She stood on the porch with her arms crossed, wearing that same windbreaker she'd had since college. She looked tense, not angry, just like she'd been holding something in for too long. You got a minute? She asked. I nodded and stepped aside. She walked in like she knew the place, which of course, she did. She used to spend summers with us. Helped repaint the upstairs bathroom. Got drunk in our kitchen at least a dozen times. We sat at the kitchen table. She didn't touch her coffee. She told me everything, Brenna said. About her and Eli. I nodded. She said you were cold. Distant. That she felt invisible. I didn't reply. But that's not the full story, she added. I lived here for long enough. I saw the way you carried everything. Every bill. Every deadline. Every hard conversation. You weren't distant, Darren. You were tired. I blinked, surprised to hear it from her. She gave up on you before she even knew how to ask for help, Brenna said, quieter now. And Eli? God. He could charm the fleas off a dog, but he's toxic. You know that. I used to think he was just lost, I said. Now I think he liked getting away with things. She nodded slowly. He's always been good at disappearing before the damage hits. There was a pause. I'm not here to defend her, she said. I just want you to know none of this was your fault. Maybe not, I said. But I sure as heck feel like I let it happen. You didn't. We sat in silence for a bit before she finally stood up. I'm staying with her for now, she said at the door. But I'm not taking sides. Thanks for saying that, I said. She looked at me for a long second. Don't disappear, okay? Clara needs someone steady. Someone real. I'm not going anywhere. About a week later, Clara got into a fight at school. Not a big one, more like a shouting match during group work. She came home red-faced and quiet, locked herself in her room, and didn't want to talk about it. I gave her space. Later that night, I heard her crying in the bathroom. I knocked. Clara. She didn't answer. I opened the door slowly. She was sitting on the floor by the tub, holding a towel against her face like it could hide her. I sat down beside her. Wasn't about the project, she said. I figured. It was this girl Harper. She made a joke about divorced parents and how they're all fake and selfish and dramatic. My stomach sank. I just lost it, she whispered. I told her she didn't know anything, and she laughed and said, clearly neither did your mom. I clenched my jaw, not sure whether to feel anger or heartbreak. Want me to talk to the school? I asked. No, she said quickly. That'll make it worse. I nodded. Okay. She leaned into me, her hair smelling like coconut shampoo. Why did Mom pick him, she asked. I didn't have an answer. So I just said, I wish I knew. We stayed on that bathroom floor until the heater kicked on and the tile stopped feeling like ice. One Saturday a few weeks later, I found myself driving out to Grand Rapids, Ohio, a small town, little river, and a couple antique stores. I didn't plan it, just needed to go somewhere. I wandered into this old shop run by a guy named Hank. The kind of guy who gives you a discount if you're friendly, charges more if you wear anything resembling out-of-town wealth. He had an old Gibson acoustic hanging on the wall. I picked it up, played a few chords. I hadn't touched a guitar in years. You play, he asked. Used to. He leaned on the counter. Some things come back easier than others. I bought the guitar. Didn't tell anyone. That night, after Clara went to bed, I sat in the garage and played until my fingers ached. Badly. Sloppy. But something about it felt like breathing again. I didn't realize how much I'd lost track of myself.